Hello and welcome back to English 2. I'm your online facilitator, instructor, Miss Abear. Today we are looking at tough questions, another one of those signposts from Kylene Beers and Bob Probst from their Notice and Note close reading strategies. The last couple of days we've looked at some other signposts, so let's look at what those are and let's remind ourselves of those. So the first day we looked at contrasts and contradictions. When you're reading and a character says or does something that's opposite or contradicts what he's been saying all along, you should stop and ask yourself, why is the character doing that? The answer could help you make a prediction or an inference about the plot and the conflict. The next day, we looked at those aha moments. When you're reading and suddenly a character realizes or understands or finally figures something out, you want to stop and ask yourself, how might this change things? If the character figured out a problem, you probably just learned something about the conflict. If the character understood a life lesson, you probably just learned about the theme. Today, we're going to be looking at tough questions. And what exactly is a tough question? We are inundated by questions every single day of our lives. You may get home this afternoon and ask your mom, hey mom, what's for dinner tonight? You may ask all kinds of things. You may turn and look at your friend and go, what is this lady talking about? Those are not the tough questions that we're talking about here. So sometimes an author will show us a character kind of having an inner thought tough question. Those questions might sound something like, why is this happening to me? Why am I not the right person? Why did he or she break up with me? Why did this happen? What does this mean? These are some of those life questions that are not easily answered. But when we think about those questions, when an author shows us that a character is having that internal conflict with him or herself, they're asking those hard questions that are not easily answered, then that author is trying to show us more about the conflict and give us some insight about what's going to happen in the story. So when you're reading and a character asks himself a really difficult question, you should stop and ask yourself, what does this question make me wonder about? In today's reading, so that we can delve into this particular signpost, we're going to read an excerpt from A Long Walk to Water by Linda Sue Park. This is about an 11-year-old boy who lives in Sudan during a time when rebels are raiding villages. In a scene early in the novel, 11-year-old Salva has become separated from the rest of his family after the rebels have attacked that small Sudanese village, and he's now alone, scared, and running. And so we're going to use excerpts from this text to help us delve deeper into those tough questions that we should be looking for and that anchor question. And what was that anchor question again? That's right. What does this question make me wonder about? So if you will take your text and follow along with me as I read out loud, and I will stop when we hear that first tough question. Salva lowered his head and ran. He ran until he could not run anymore. Then he walked for hours until the sun was nearly gone from the sky. Other people were walking too. There were so many of them that they couldn't all be from the school village. They must have come from the whole area. As Salva walked, the same thoughts kept going through his head in rhythm with his steps. Where are we going? Where's my family? When will I see them again? And we're going to stop here because there are several tough questions. Where are we going? Where is my family? When will I see them again? These are not easily answered in this text. Remember, Salva's village, his school village, had just been attacked, and we don't know what's happened with his family, and he's asking those really tough questions. And so we want to stop and ask ourselves, what was that anchor question again? That's right. What does this question make me wonder about? So I'm kind of thinking, I'm wondering the same thing that Salva is wondering. Where is his family? Are they going to show up? What's going to happen if he is alone? And what does his future look like if he doesn't have a family? One of his other questions is, where are we going? So we can't go back to his village. It's been attacked. So where are they going? And wherever they go, will he feel safe again? So those are questions that aren't easily answered. But you see how they led to those other questions that we begin wondering about. We're going to read on, and we're going to skip ahead to the story where a point where Salva, who's been on his own for quite a while, he finds a small group of people who are trying to survive. As I read out loud, I want you to put a question mark where you see a tough question, and then we will come back to that when we pause. So follow along with me as I read, and remember, put a question mark in the text or along the margin when you see those tough questions. Sure enough, there were now 3 women giving water to the men on the ground. Like a miracle, the small amounts of water revived them. They were able to stagger to their feet and join the group as the walking continued. But their 5 dead companions were left behind. There were no tools with which to dig, and besides, burying the dead men would have taken too much time. Salva tried not to look as he walked past the bodies, but his eyes were drawn in that direction. He knew what would happen. Vultures would find the bodies and strip them of their rotting flesh until only the bones remained. He felt sick at the thought of those men, first dying in such a horrible way, and then having even their corpses ravaged. If he were older and stronger, would he have given water to those men? Or would he, like most of the group, have kept his water for himself? It was the group's 3rd day in the desert. By sunset, they would be out of the desert, and after that, it would not be far to the Itang refugee camp in Ethiopia. All right, I'm going to stop here because obviously the tough question is, would he have given water to these men? Or would he, like most of the group, have kept his water for himself? When you spot such a question in the text, you want to stop and ask yourself, what does this make me wonder about? So at this time, I want you to turn to your neighbor, and I want you to think about those questions that Salva asks, and I want you to also think about what questions what do those questions make you wonder about? I'm going to walk around and listen to your thoughts, and we'll come back together. All right, let's come back together as a big group, and I'm going to tell you some of the thoughts that I heard as I was walking around. I wonder if I would have given them water. I wonder the same thing. I don't know if I would have, and I'm a pretty strong person, adult. I wonder if Salva will die out there. Does he have enough water for where they're going? That's a great question too. What kind of place is this? Are there police trying to help? What do you do when the government is out to get you? Those are some great questions, and those questions can lead us to the conflict and give us ideas about what's going to happen later in the story. So let's think about those additional questions that we had, and let's read a little bit further and see what else is going to happen. In this scene, Salva is alone, and you'll easily spot the tough question. So when you spot that tough question, I want you to put a question mark in the margin beside that question. All right, follow along as I read out loud. I am alone now. I am all that is left of my family. His father, who had sent Salva to school, brought him treats like mangoes, trusted him to take care of the herd. His mother, always ready with food and milk and a soft hand to stroke Salva's head. His brothers and sisters, whom he had laughed with and played with and looked after, he would never see them again. How can I go on without them? But how can I not? They would want me to survive, to grow up and make something of my life, to honor their memories. Take a few minutes now and think about those tough questions that you noticed in your thoughts, and your thoughts to that anchor question. If you've forgotten the question, it's on the poster. It's up here. What does this make me wonder about? So I want you to think about those that anchor question, and I want you to jot down your thoughts in your margins. Once you've jotted down your thoughts, I want you to turn to your shoulder partner and talk those out, your wonderings as well as your partner's wonderings, and then we'll come back together as a group. Okay, this is a very powerful scene, and some of the things that I heard the different groups saying, that's such a deep question. How can I go on without them? I wonder if he's thinking about giving up himself. Does he think his situation is that hopeless? Is his situation that hopeless? That's some great wonderings and some great questions to Salva's tough questions. Another set of thoughts, another set of partners I heard say, how can I not go on without them? That makes me wonder what he will grow up to become. I wonder how he will live his life to honor his family. Think about the conversations and discussions we've just had. They come from considering what the tough questions meant. Remember that authors show us tough questions to give us insight into the struggle the main character faces. When we see those questions, we should ask ourselves, what does this question make me wonder about? It's easy to read right past these tough questions because the author seldom gives you answers at that point. But now you know that what the author wants you to do is recognize that these questions show you what concerns the character. You should pause and ask yourself what the tough question makes you wonder about. When you understand the character's situation, you are better able to contemplate how you might react in similar circumstances. When you're able to do that, you will have a much deeper understanding of the conflicts presented. So as you read in your independent novels, think about some of those signposts that we've been looking at. Think about those contrasts and contradictions. Think about those aha moments, and think about those tough questions. And let's see if you can identify those in your own reading. So let's go back and review our tough questions. When you are reading and the character asks himself a really difficult question, you should stop and ask yourself, what does this make me wonder about? That answer will tell you about the conflict and may give you some ideas about what will happen later in the story. And again, I've given you some information here for those map assessments. What might those questions look like? How are the character motivations developed over the course of the text? Which of the following is an example conflicting emotions developed? Which statement best predicts? As depicted in lines X through X, an action most strongly suggests that what? These questions that will happen on the map test were going to happen regardless. But if you're using these close reading strategies that we've been talking about, and we will continue talking about next week as well, the rest of this week and next week, then you will be better equipped to answer those questions. So we are done with our lesson for today. I look forward to tomorrow, where we will look at another one of these amazing signposts to make you better readers. I hope that you have a great day and happy reading.